I'd like to call the meeting to order. And the first thing I'm required to do is to read the script for remotely conducted meetings. So, as a preliminary matter, this is Mary Ann Easley, Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Allison.
Here.
Diane.
Here.
Vanessa.
Here.
Kendra. Jude.
Here.
Susie. Linda.
Here.
And Mary Ann. Okay. Staff members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jericho.
Aye.
Laura.
Here.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Michelle Monroe.
Here.
Herb Taylor.
Here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. This open meeting. Pardon?
I have Susie incoming.
This open meeting of the Council on Aging is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. And this meeting in particular will not feature public comment. For this meeting, the Council on Aging is convening by video conference via Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the meeting. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Before we proceed, just a couple of reminders. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. And please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. Before I turn the meeting over to Michelle and Herb for this focus group, I want to make sure that we have all had a chance to read the minutes of the last two meetings and that we approve them. So let me start with the meeting of November 4, which we failed to approve at the last meeting. So does anyone have any changes or corrections to the meeting minutes of November 4, 2020? Well, I do, and I've provided them to our secretary, but I told her I would have to read them, so here goes. Under number 7, official business, Laura's name should be capitalized. And under number 9, Laura's last name is spelled Stewart with a T at the end and not a D. And also on number 9, Cumbies is mentioned and should be capitalized. And there are a couple of things in number 10B, which I think can be easily corrected in that sentence. So with all of those corrections, can I get somebody to move to approve the minutes of the November meeting?
I move to approve.
Second.
Vanessa, thank you. Who's the
Second. Susie.
Thank you very much.
We have to roll call the approval.
Okay, yes, I have to roll call everybody, so let me get the roll again. Okay, this is for approval of the November minutes. Allison? Allison?
You're muted.
I'll come back to Allison. Diane?
Unmute.
Hello, everybody. Turn on. your-
Allison's on.
Okay. Diane? Diane? Hello? I'll come back to you. Vanessa?
Okay.
Kendra?
Approved. Yep. Here. Yep.
Judith?
Yep. Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Linda?
Yep.
Mary Ann, yes. Okay. We've approved those minutes. And the last minutes that we have to approve are those of last month's meeting, December 2. Does anybody have any changes or suggestions? Okay, again, I do, and I'll read them even though I've provided them to our secretary. Joe Aguiar should not be listed as part of our quorum, but as a guest, as the NCEA president. Jericho's title is Director of Human Services, not Human Resources. And lastly, under number 10, Michelle's name is spelled Monroe, M-U-N-R-O-E, and Herb Taylor is the other presenter today. So with those corrections, I'd like to ask for approval of the minutes of the December meeting. Can we go down the list again? Allison,
Yay.
Diane,
Yeah.
Vanessa,
Yep.
Kendra. Kendra, not here. Judith, Susie,
Yes.
Linda,
Yep.
Mary Ann. Okay. So now that we've approved the minutes of the last two meetings,
Excuse me. Who was that approved and seconded by? There was noise in the
oh,
background.
sorry,
could
I
not
forgot to
hear.
do that. Actually, it ended up being approved by everybody who's here, so,
I know, okay. I mean,
I
okay.
wanted to know who motioned and who seconded.
yeah, there
Yes.
was no, yeah. So does
Second.
somebody want to make a motion and somebody second it?
Second. I'll make a motion.
Okay, who's second?
Susie.
Second?
Allison seconds.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it. Okay, with that, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Michelle and to Herb, and I've asked them to introduce themselves since they're new to many of us. So take it away, Michelle and Herb.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Thank you, everybody, for having us today. I'm Michelle Monroe, the Assistant Administrator of our island home. Herb Taylor is a consultant with the town of Nantucket and will be facilitating this meeting today. He has worked with us in previous meetings, talking about the potential options for a future Our Island home. With that, I will turn this over to Herb and he can introduce himself and give you a little bit of update on him as well.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks for having the opportunity to be with you all. Can everyone hear me okay? Just want to make sure. Okay, great. So as Michelle mentioned, I've been involved in aging services for many years as a consultant and also ran a large not-for-profit in aging services that served around New England in various roles: skilled nursing, assisted living, independent living, home health care, CCRCs. So I've been involved in aging services, and about maybe 6 months ago, the town asked me to help them, as Michelle said, in the process of thinking about the services presently offered at our island home and how Nantucket might best provide those services in the future. This is in my opinion, when we come together to think about things like this, it's important to recognize that, we as individuals, well, first let me say, I was not hired to really provide advice. I've hired to facilitate a process. And that's important because my feeling in doing work like this is that organizations or communities really know the answer. And we need to go and ask people what they think, ask people to provide input and insight, especially important groups like the Council on Aging. And so we have been meeting with stakeholder groups, as Michelle has mentioned, to get input and insight from folks on this important decision. And really, again, in my opinion, when we make decisions or choices in our individual lives, we do so thinking about the values we have. What does it mean to be the person we are? We also take into consideration what are the facts or assumptions or perspectives that are vital in making the decision. And then we look at the options and choices and we make a decision based on those core values and based on those facts that we have before us. That just happens naturally when we as individuals make decisions and choices. For entities like Nantucket, you have to go through a more intentional process to think together about core values, to think together about the information that's vital to make a decision. And so that's what we've been doing with stakeholder groups as we think about our island home and the future of those services offered in Nantucket. So as we go through this, really what we're here for is to listen to you, is to get your insight and to provide input that will be combined with the other input, although both separately. I will say whatever comes out of this meeting will separately be provided to the select board not just a summary with other groups, but the Council Nation will have its own voice in that input. So I hope that you'll be very willing to share your thoughts today in the next 50 minutes or so, 45 to 50 minutes. It's always harder to do these sort of conversations over Zoom. Much easier if we're all together and I'm standing in front of a whiteboard, but we don't have that opportunity in these days. And so what will happen is in a few moments, Michelle will actually put up a piece, share her screen, and she'll take notes so you can see and reflect on what you all share. But what we're going to be looking for and what we're going to start is we're going to first take a step back and not jump right to, well, what are the options? What, should our island home be where it is? Should it be someplace else? What are the services that should be provided? That's someplace where we'll get to, but we're not going to go there first. The first question I have and the first area that we'd like your input in is, as you think about older adults on Nantucket and how Nantucket serves those older adults, what are the core values that are important for Nantucket regarding care for older adults? In other words, you might think about this as, what are the responsibilities that Nantucket has to its oldest citizens? So let's really think about there. What are the values that leaders of Nantucket should think about as they make choices about caring for its older citizens? How would you respond to that question? And I'm going to let Michelle, hopefully she can share her screen, and she's going to take notes. And just jump in. We'll figure it out. If two people talk over each other, that's fine. We'll separate it out. So let's hear from someone about a core value that you think is important
I'll start.
for Nantucket.
I think dignity.
Dignity, that's perfect. Yes. So important. What about someone else?
I think assuming responsibility among ourselves instead of pushing it off onto some other organization or entity, town.
Yes, so taking responsibility for the care for its citizens. Perfect. I think, Allison, you might be on mute. I see your mouth moving.
I think that sharing their importance to the community, you know, and their value in how Nantucket is where it is now.
Yes, that's a great point. So many times, unfortunately, communities see their older citizens as part of the past and not as an active part of the present. And I know you all, being involved in Council on Aging, know that that's not the case. But I think sometimes organizations and communities think again, how do we even ensure in whatever happens in Nantucket that it's those folks who are in need of services are engaged in the community, and the community continues to be engaged with them.
I think another thing here, I don't know if that belongs in this section or not, is that we can't drive down the street. If many people are shipped over to the Cape or wherever they're gone, a lot of what keeps these guys vital here and the attachment to their elders is the fact that we can literally see them here. And if they're on the Cape, there's no access, and they don't remain vital because they don't see us. I don't know how you want to phrase that. It does keep them vital. It keeps us attached to them. And if something happens to them, we feel like we can be there with them on their final hours, et cetera, et cetera. So access between the family members is critical here. And I've seen too many people get shipped over to the Cape, and that doesn't last long.
Yeah, we've heard that. You're right. That is definitely a core value to have it, because
Maintain the connections between family members they have to stay here. One way or the other, they have to stay here.
And simply what you're simply saying is to providing services on Nantucket, because as we all know, there are services that you could ship people away. I'm not saying anyone would want that to happen, but I think a core value for the people of Nantucket is to take care of its own, you might say.
Yeah.
And we've heard that, so that's very important.
I think we have to ensure an emphasis on remaining as active as possible, which is different for every individual.
Yeah.
Connections, really connections. It's a
And so-
Nantucket connection.
Is this just for our island home? Or are we talking about care for all older adults?
It could be I would expand it beyond just what happens presently at our island home. So you can when you think about, especially this instance, on core values. So the idea of connection, it might be provided at a place like our island home, but through, a senior center, other means, through the Council on Aging activities, certainly connection and some of these services can be provided. But I think we need to think about it as in an inclusive sort of mindset.
I know we're not really supposed to talk politics and religion, but I really think that faith should be up there to make sure that seniors have the ability to connect with their faith, whether it be, the church going to them going to the church, online, etc.
Well, I think I hear what you're saying is that we have to remember that each individual is we're not just providing physical care, right? It's body, mind, and spirit, and that will be very different for different folks, but making sure that we have that holistic sense of care and services for the older adults in Nantucket.
I think that keeping them vital to the community and available, for instance, the relationship between young children and older adults, whether they're family or not, I think is something that our community has tried to do, and it's relevant to both the seniors and the youngers. So,
yeah,
that's something that I think is important and has been really expressed well through the programs that have been successful at the Salt Marsh with the Early Childhood Resource Center. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, those intergenerational connections, unfortunately, in our society today, in all aspects of society everywhere, we are categorized in age groups and oftentimes find ourselves stuck in those different places. So that opportunity to provide intergenerational connection, as you say, is important for all involved.
Under dignity, if you could do like / independence, you know,
Mhm.
and acknowledgement, and
Mm.
in the ways of kind of like, just because, you know, they're in our island home, that doesn't mean they're just there and then they go away. On top of their dignity, you know, they are, you know, acknowledge who they are. And if they're not in our island home, then promote the independence that the seniors still have.
When you say acknowledgedness, you mean like listened to and heard and responded
Yes,
to?
because everybody has different needs for all of the senior community across the board, you know, like transportation, medical, food, you know, are we actually connecting to everybody?
Yeah.
I also think that older adults, especially frail elders, need to know that there's some place for them to go, that there's someone looking out for them. You know, oftentimes people who are already dialed into the care and options that there are here are in a much better place, but we need to make sure that the frail are seen and cared for. So I don't know how you say that. That's good.
Yeah.
I think we need to recognize that each person is an individual. And
Yes.
we can't just clump people together because they're old.
Mm. Yeah, that's sort of getting at the reality that at one point we sort of had this idea of institutionalization, and there was you know, sort of synergies and efficiencies from doing that, but we lost the individual sometime at one point relative to, you know, building institutions that sort of cared for the average person. But the average person there's no average person. Each person is their own person. So personalized, individualized. Yeah, those are good,
And I think this
important.
connects back to the first line that says listen to their needs, but really important to listen to each individual's needs because they're all different.
Yeah, Michelle, I would put down individualized, personalized, right there.
Under services, maintaining services on Nantucket for elders, it really needs to be, you know, the overall person. So it should, like you said, mind, body, and soul. So, you know, mental health, you need to have the relationships to make sure that you have the proper, you know, social workers, counselors, you know, those kind of things. And then also on top to make sure that, you know, we do have, you know, doctors and that are available for the elderly. I mean, I try to make a doctor's appointment, I can't be seen in, you know, 8 weeks. So it's kind of like make sure that, I don't want to say to make sure that they're a priority, however, to make sure that, you know, if they have the correct access for, you know, what they need.
Yes.
And I think for someone looking out for them, I think outreach to people who don't think they might need it.
That's great.
I
So
would
sort of,
add that, whoops,
no, go ahead.
can I speak? I know that we get quality care here, but it should be forward thinking. I don't know, ahead of the game, or I don't know how to say, forward thinking care, not what's current now, but what's for the future. I don't know how to word that, but
No, that's perfect. I think you're right, because there's no question that how, aging services were provided not just decades ago, but a few years ago is very different than how it will be provided in the future. And some of that connects to Allison's point about community outreach, making sure that the walls of whatever place you build are porous, that there's involvement that goes beyond that. The idea is to keep people where they want to be as long as they want to be there. And community outreach, connecting to people in their homes, their apartments, and providing services there, or access even to services within a physical space is sort of the new forward thinking. Again, getting at another point that was brought up, a personalized, individualized care that meets the needs of each person.
Something that we started before COVID happening was making Nantucket a dementia-friendly community. And I think that not every person who is an older adult has cognitive issues, but the older you get, the better chance there is to become impaired. And a good portion of the community, I mean, that's only growing. Dementia is a world health problem. And, becoming a dementia-friendly community takes into account most of the things that we're mentioning here, faith and individualization and stuff. So I think that I'd like to see that as a core value for Nantucket.
And that gets to the point.
yeah.
When we
Also
talk
due to-
about- Go ahead.
Also due to COVID, like, you can't be, here or there together. So I know that the social needs for the elderly
Mhm.
have diminished a lot. The physical needs, like gyms, for instance, have also been depleted and sometimes even shut down. So just activities overall in general.
I think COVID has helped us focus on the things that were going right that are no longer going right, and how we need to have those things available again and in even a better shape.
And it also reminds us, I think, the last two comments about social needs and a dementia-friendly community reminds me that in many of these stakeholder meetings, when we go through this process, you could argue that this is a list of core values that are for every adult in Nantucket, or every person, no matter what their age in Nantucket. These are things, again, that are important for people of any age. And it connects to that point that, being an older adult, you should have this, the town needs to have the same values, any organization needs to have the same values as the younger adults as well. And especially with dementia sometimes impacting people of younger ages. It's not just 80 and 90-year-olds. You can have 50-year-olds who have dementia. But we can come back to this. I want to make sure we have enough time to look at the other areas. But again, part of what we're doing here is to lay the foundation so that when people are making decisions and choices about the future of Nantucket service to its older adults, those people, those government officials, keep in mind what the values are, that any choice, any decision that's made is consistent with these values that have been developed by these different stakeholder groups. So thank you for that. And as we go through, if others come up, we'll come back to it. But I wanted to move to the other aspects. So once we figured out what it means to be who we are, we then will use, when we make choices and decisions in our individual lives, we then obviously use the facts that we have before us to make those decisions about choices. We understand who we are, we try to understand the context we exist in, and then we make a choice. So thinking about Nantucket, we've talked a little bit about those values, those responsibilities, what it means to be Nantucket for its older adults. Now I want us to talk a little bit, or for you to share a little bit on what facts are important. You could say or assumptions or perspectives, because in this world, perspectives can be facts. So what facts, assumptions, perspectives do you think are important, are vital information to decision makers as they move forward on thinking about these issues for Nantucket, thinking about, again, an Our Island home or something like it in the future for Nantucket? What are some facts or assumptions or perspectives that you would want to make sure people remember before decisions are made?
That a view is not, no, that, oh, I mean, people have said that Our Island home, the view from the patio is unrecognized by the residents. You know, it doesn't make any difference if there's a view or not. And I think that is something that is a poor assumption. I don't know.
One fact is, I think the fact that, a view, the location, the ambiance of a place matters. That there's, like you say, and it might not matter to one person, but it might matter to another person. So I think there is something special about that view, and that should be acknowledged.
I have a different tact. I don't agree with that, and I have never agreed with it, where it's located, because of the sea change, climate change, water intrusion, the beating it takes from nor'easters, et cetera, and that's going to get worse. I'm more in the fact of a safe, code compliant facility that is welcoming, has space for activities and space for everybody to have their own room. That's more important to me than anything else. My father's in a nursing home in New Jersey, and we don't have a lot of that at that where he is. And he could care less about looking out the window. I can tell you that now. But I want a safe environment that's welcoming, et cetera. Everybody has their own room and adequate space, and have activity rooms and a great dining facility in congregate areas, rather than people have to sit in halls like they do now.
Well, I think that any future island home is going to have to be code compliant.
Yeah, but I don't care about the view. I'm telling you, I don't, and I haven't, because I've been in there, and you have too, Allison, and I've had other friends in there, and they don't look out the window too often. They're more interested in, I want them more engaged. I want them more activity related. I want them more, I'm more focused on that than maintaining a view.
I think that the view sets, or that it sets the stage for everything that happens. The tides, the sun, the harbor. It's it's not just for the residents; it's for the people who visit there, who work there. But yeah, I think
I want to make sure we capture two of the things that were said. One is the reality of climate change. I think that's a fact, or we can put in, Michelle, because, and rising tides, rising seawater. I think those are realities that not only the Ireland home, but location, but we all have to worry about and think about. I also want to make sure we change that first bullet, Michelle, because it says location views are not a factor. I think they are a factor. I think you meant are a factor in the decision making. I think just the fact that we have differing opinions, I think it's still a factor in the discussion. And I think there's arguments on both sides that can be made, because again, we're talking about individuals. Some might not care about the view. Some might. The other thing I think, Allison, that you got at, and Linda, you were mentioning, is this idea that the connection, we need to sure there's a connection to the reality of Nantucket, like a view, the ocean, the harbor, the boats. That's a part of people who've grown up in Nantucket or have been in Nantucket a long time. So there's something that's even deeper perhaps than we can just say the view. Just that, then, I don't know if it's as simple as a feeling of Nantucket needs to be maintained, or there's, I
I
don't
think
know
if
if
you
folks,
lived 30 miles at sea for generations, being moved to the woods would be a little bit, or not recognizing the things that you enjoy and love about the island would be a little disconcerting.
There are ways to bring the outside to the inside. I've worked on other projects like that. But I think two of the things that are missing here are capacity. Do we have enough
Capacity, good.
capacity? We have not enough capacity, and disturbance. If we were to maintain a facility over there, which we don't have enough room to do, would the disturbance to the residents, both there and Landmark House, be excessive? And it will be excessive. So I think you have to deal with the disturbance of building on site. And you have to deal with what is the capacity of a reasonable, what is the carrying capacity of any facility?
Well, we don't have any option when it comes to carrying capacity. We have 45 beds, and that's all we can get. So I don't think capacity is a choice that we have.
But it's capacity vis-a-vis the fact that they're doubled up and tripled up or doubled up in rooms that should be single rooms, as opposed to 25 rooms versus 45 individual rooms. How is it laid out? There's a lot of
That's why we
logistical things that need to be addressed.
I want to jump in here because I want to make sure we don't jump forward too far to because we're
Right.
talking about now options and choices. So I want to pull back a little bit. But I think there's no question, there is a fact that there's limitations of the present size of the location. It might not be capacity, or as Linda points out, it might be because, inability to make enough single rooms or enough space for staff or enough could be a lot of different things. By definition, because you have a certain piece of land there where Island Home is, there is a limitation on I don't know if capacity is the right terminology, but there's limitation of space at the present location.
We
Let's
have
before we
already,
go-
Already talked about all this, though.
we do have a plan. There's an architectural drawing that shows what it could be and how it could happen. And so, we've been working on this since 2008. And
Yes.
so we've been through many phases of what can happen and how it can be. And, we need to look to the people who are professionals and who have tackled this kind of problem before for solutions. And we're going to then make them ours because we're different. We have different needs, and we're the only municipal nursing facility in the whole state. So we have, confines as well.
That's a fact to point out. Only municipal nursing home.
Personally, you're going to hear my comments. I have not been in favor of leaving and trying to build another one in that site. And I'd rather turn the existing Island Home into a senior center. End of story. And that's where I'm going to be coming from the whole time.
Yep, we know.
Okay, there's another fact we can put down is that it's a fact or perspective that there could be other uses for citizens, for older adults of the present Island Home. But
Yeah,
again,
like Salt
let's
Marsh.
pause. I want Linda and Allison to pause for a moment because we're going to get to all this in a few moments. I want to invite others who might have other facts and assumptions that are important for us to continue to keep in mind. It could be just about.
I would like to
I'd
say
like to state one fact, which is cost is a big factor in what the taxpayers are willing to bear.
Look, that's very important. There's a cost of the building. Yes, and Judith, you
I
shared
did a timeline. As Allison said, 2008. I feel like we're rehashing something that's been spoken about for years, some of these debates. And, this isn't even going to be built in our lifetime, it seems. When's it going to start? When's the action plan or timeline plan or something concrete that we can get hold of rather than debate?
It seems like a lot of the available land has been used for other purposes. There's a solar array going on, ball fields. The town-owned land has dwindled to nothing. Well,
because nobody's making this an important thing to get started.
I think I hear
I-
what's saying is it sense of urgency. A fact
Yes,
is something should be a
thank
sense
you.
of urgency to respond and to move. And I do think that that's one of the reasons I've been involved to help to move this forward. There has been, as you've all said, been studies over the last 2 decades, maybe longer, to think about what to do. Each time a step is made, there seems to be challenges based on some of these facts, based on limitations, based on cost, based on inability to really provide forward-thinking services in certain of the suggestions that have been made. So, but this process of going through talking to stakeholders, trying to flesh all of this out so that a decision can be made finally and move forward. Let's think about other facts, maybe even about Nantucket.
Another assumption is that
yeah.
only Islanders, like true blue, born, raised generation Islanders are allowed in our island home.
Yeah,
That's great.
that's been the case for years, where everybody said you have to be born on Nantucket to get into the island home, but that's been debunked over and over, but people still think that.
So we should
People
make sure,
still don't know
Michelle,
where
to put
it is either.
So that
only
needs public
that's a
relations.
it sounds like that's a false assumption. So we don't want to put only island homes are allowed, or else people will think we're saying that's the fact. The fact is this, I think I'm hearing you say that's a false assumption. It's not a fact, right, Vanessa?
No, not at all.
Yeah, so we should say is a false assumption.
And not only the
Michelle.
cost of what the taxpayers are willing to bear, but the cost of what the person moving in is also an assumption. Like, we can't afford it, it costs too much.
Yes, so
Can I ask
not-
something? Who are we talking to here? The select board, the town people, or the people who are designing this? I'm
not the people deciding. We're talking to the town, the people. The select board should be representing the town, so I'd say we're coming up with, the decision makers are fundamentally going to be the town. If whatever happens, we'll have to go to town meeting.
So can we put in that we need social media or public relations, or are we talking more of physical?
This is more the reality. So you're saying to get the word, whatever's decided to get the word out, is that what you're saying about the
Well,
process?
This thing about only islanders are allowed, then I think public relations or more social output for ideas. I'm a little confused.
Yeah, so
by
what we're
this.
developing, thanks for asking that. So this is definitely to be presented to the select board as they make a decision moving forward. But fundamentally, this will also be used in developing what will be presented to the town at some point. So this is not, and I guess you could say, finally, it will be used as important data for the design of whatever gets built. So unfortunately, the answer is all of the above to your question.
And I'm wondering, can we put lost opportunities next to urgency? Because I think that many of the places that could have been appropriate for our island home have been used for other things in the, 2008 till now is, I don't know, I can't remember. Someone could do that. It's just been a really long time, and it's unfortunate that there's no land left, or, I mean, it's fortunate that the taxpayers pay a huge amount of money to support our island home, and they don't even live here. So we have to be happy that the property values are continuing to skyrocket, but that is not a good position for us to be in when we don't have any place to build a new facility. So
That's fair.
yeah.
So because again, I want to make sure to be conscious of your time and the process, and I want to make sure we get to start talking about options and possibilities, which you've already started. But before we move from this? Are there any other facts that you think are important?
Yes, I think that whatever is proposed is going to require a big communications plan because it's going to have to be sold to taxpayers, island residents, whether they're full-time or seasonal.
Great point.
Are we missing any big areas?
Well, I think you've sort of touched on some of the ones like mentioned, the cost to the residents. There's facts about Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, and there's sort of interior facts that we heard, that we heard from some of the folks who are in, at work at our island home or residents at our island home. They shared more specific facts about space within the building or limitations of space in the building. So I think each group, you all are representing a broader sort of constituency group beyond the Ireland home, internal folks, which is important in the decision making. So there are going to be people who come up with different sets of facts or assumptions that are important. All are important, they just come from different perspectives.
I mean, I think it's difficult for people who have never had any need for a skilled nursing facility to understand the value of a skilled nursing facility. So it's, I'm surprised that people who've lived here forever don't know where our island home is. And they don't know what it looks like or what it smells like or what it feels like to be a resident or family member. So I don't know, that goes with communications and outreach, because they're, when you need a skilled nursing facility, you need it like often pretty quickly or.
Well, the other reality, another fact about Ireland Home that has been mentioned a number of times in these groups are that Ireland Home is really not even just serving as a skilled nursing facility. There are folks in there that would be more appropriately served in other sorts of communities, but Ireland Home is sort of a catch-all for a lot of different services that are necessary on the island, but are maybe sort of square pegs in round holes at our island home. Like some issues.
Housing, there's so many things we don't have.
Related to what Allison said, a nursing facility like this is really expensive, and we have to really want it in order to have it.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line. It's going to cost a lot of money, and so if we're not really committed, it's not going to happen.
I think that's a good fact that's mentioned. I think Mary Inez has a very important point, is that this will take commitment, because there's no question. I mean, that is clear. And obviously the potential override is making it abundantly clear. So I think this sense of a commitment upon the town, that could even be a core value, but it's not a core value. It's a fact that's going to take real commitment.
On top of
So again,
commitment, I would like to also, I don't know if we can put it under assumptions, but to make sure that there's adequate and healthy staff. I feel like sometimes people get so burnt out being in a nursing home facility, just to make sure that everyone is, properly staffed, that they're happy, they're healthy, they enjoy, their position. Do we need to fill another position, regarding, physical activity? Do we need to bring in another, doctor to oversee, patients? You know what I mean? To make sure that there's enough, not patients, sorry, residents, enough staff to be healthy, enough staff to cover it, or burnt out.
Yeah, so you're talking about fulfillment, maybe, is a good summary of what you said, staff fulfillment. And I think there's a challenge for staffing a place like Ireland Home, or any place that would exist in Nantucket. And fulfillment is important. When you think about forward thinking, a lot of places that are moving toward a different model than the institutional model have in mind not just the resident need, but the opportunity for staff to not just do the same thing all the time. That, it's sort of universal staff, people who are involved in sort of a fuller care community, and not just doing the same thing all the time. Those sort of small houses or greenhouses, if that's the direction that Nantucket decides to go, is an attempt to not, again, just provide fulfillment for the residents, but for the staff as well. So let's move.
Oh, I've got one really big fact, and that is that with all of the adverse conditions, the ability for the staff to keep the residents safe in this COVID, I mean, if there was a place that could have been completely run through and decimated by COVID, it would be our island home. And the way the staff was able to pull together, the protocols they put in place, and the success that they had in doing that is a fact that, it's a vital need for the community to have a place like that. So
that's an important fact, at least a perspective, that the staff not only during this time of COVID, but the staff have done a great job in keeping the residents safe.
Yeah.
And not only safe, cared for in general. So let's move in the time we have left to thinking about the options and possibilities. And we've already heard of a couple that I think we can spend some time thinking more about. And so a couple we've talked about is build a new island home in a present location. That's one certain option or possibility that has been discussed in this meeting. And we're going to, underneath that, think of strengths and weaknesses. Within that, the other possibility or option that's been raised up is build a new island home in a new location. That's obviously also an option or possibility. There's always possibility of do nothing. That's always a possibility. No one mentioned it, and perhaps no one would advocate for it, but do nothing is always a possibility when we make decisions in our life. And sometimes
I think doing nothing would be giving up on having a skilled nursing facility, because we won't be able to have that be, the Department of Public Health is giving us plenty of leeway right now with keeping up with, so do nothing is deciding to not have a skilled nursing facility.
They're
Okay,
already
so-
coming, they've already come after us, and I think Allison pointed out, we're the last privately held one by a town here. And we cannot continue to do that because we don't know how long that they're going to not come after us and shut it down, or require such
Well,
upgrades that you cannot upgrade the current facility. That's the problem.
I think if we have
That's
a
a good-
plan moving forward, then
Let us
they'll
go. Yeah.
continue to support us. But if we don't have a plan,
Yeah. If we bury our heads in the sand, they are not going to be happy with us.
back up under facts and assumptions, I think it's important to put we can just put DPH or Department of Public Health concerns, issues with the present OIH. I think that's
Yeah, that's good.
fact. So let's go back we'll start with do nothing. We're going to put under each of these strengths and weaknesses. One real weakness under do nothing is current issues would remain, and as you mentioned, it is probably not feasible. So let's put do nothing off the table because we don't have time to talk about it anymore. Does anyone think there's a strength under do nothing?
No.
No. Okay. So now what I want us to do is to each think of underneath, build a new facility at current location. This is going to be strength. We're going to just do strength. So you can just put strength there, and then you can write strengths underneath it. What is the strengths? And we're not going to argue about whether it is a strength or not a strength. Just for individual people, what would be the strengths of the option of building a new facility in the current location?
I don't have any, so I'm not going to comment.
Okay, whatever, for those who have any, even if you might disagree with the possibility, we can all still see potentially strengths. And each of these, I think we could each have our preference, but my guess is we could each also see strengths and weaknesses. So what are some of the strengths?
It has a view and proximity to downtown.
Okay, a strength has a view and proximity.
Not
So
just a
sort of cent-
proximity to town, but a proximity to the hospital, close to the fire station, close to the police station.
Centrally located.
Centrally located, that's a good way to put it.
I think that having it there would show a huge gratitude to senior citizens of Nantucket to have that be a place where you can look forward to going if you need to have skilled care. I think, and it would show our community as being one who valued people who have to be in skilled nursing facilities by having it be a prominent place, by having it be a place with a view, by having it be a place that's convenient for people to visit. So
what you're saying, I think the strength is then that it is more accessible, more viewable, more present potentially in that location.
Yeah.
Because again, it depends on what's there, whether the town can be proud of it or not. I mean, I think but that location definitely gives the opportunity for that to happen.
I think a new facility in any location is what we're after. But I think that if we chose and chose to spend to keep it there, it would be a display of the value of elders in our ecosystem here. And instead of shuffling them on down by the sewer beds, we choose.
Hey, I live out here. This is not out in the middle of nowhere, and I live next door to Sherburne Commons. We're not out next to the sewer beds. So let's be real.
What other strengths are there about having it in the present location? Okay.
Is it possible to use any of the building? Do you
So
know that?
far, no.
Thank you.
We wish.
Well, so let's just put on the table then, it sounds like what you're saying is there a possibility to renovate as a third option, renovate our island home?
That's been kicked
So
to the
does-
curb.
Yeah, I don't think that's an option any longer.
It's not.
Cost effective.
And
It's
the
an option,
building
but-
cannot be retrofitted without really ripping it down. So
Okay, so Michelle, let's put that down as an option that has too many weaknesses. And one of those weaknesses are cost and again, really
logistics.
infrastructure.
So
And,
I have a question. It seems like this is so redundant. We've sort of been through all of this and made these lists before and gone through all these options and possibilities, but with no end result. And it just seems like we're going over old news.
In circles.
Am I correct?
That's what I feel also.
And so making lists and options and what for the future and the weaknesses and all of this seems ridiculous because we all know the issues. I think about people who come into town meeting and 500 people come in because they want to have a new ball field or they want a new soccer field. And then 500 people leave and they get their soccer field. I mean, maybe what we should do is we have to go in there with a ton of people, aged people, younger people, just find a whole core group to go in and approve something so at least we can set something up. I thought the property out by the Nisha MSPCA, whatever it's called now, I thought that was a great location. That's now sold or under agreement, so that's out.
Which one?
And it seems like this is just, repeating old news.
Which thing has been sold?
I believe the property out on Westchester at the end next to the hospital, next to the animal hospital.
That's Billy Cassidy's.
Yeah, which is really too bad because that had all that open space, tons of parking.
But that would never have been an island home.
I'm sorry?
That would never have been our island home.
That would have been the Salt Marsh Center.
Yeah, that would have been a salt marsh, but I'm just saying there are options out there, but we can't jump on it because we haven't gotten the okay and the money and all the rest of it. But doing what we're doing right now seems, going over being just really redundant. But anyhow.
Yeah. What I have experienced, the challenge is sort of the challenge you've heard in this meeting is that there are two distinct viewpoints. One is to build in the present location, and there are strengths and weaknesses to that. Just because it's been there, that's seen as a strength. There are a number of weaknesses because of the limitations of just having the site it is, and the cost is certainly something that is going to be a lot more than any other location.
Well, are we talking about weaknesses right here, or are we only talking about positives right here?
Right now it was on.
I think he's just
well,
describing what the situation is. And of
Then
course,
we
the
gotta
water's
go back
rising. The
Then we
tide
gotta
is,
go back to climate change again.
yeah.
The other side is the folks who want to build in a new location. So I think the challenge for those, even though it has been talked about for a while, still seems like the community has not come to a consensus, or at least a public consensus at once, which is why we're talking to many different stakeholder groups and getting this sort of discussion. And you have in each group some who might think it should be in a present location, and some who think it should be in another location.
Maybe what you should do is create a group of people or a meeting at such and such or at the high school or online or whatever to get more people involved, because we've been through this and we know all these, and we don't really need the list because we're already aware of the situation. It's just either find a piece of land or work on the possibility of fixing up the island home as it is. So yes, we know it's prohibitive, but a result has to start occurring.
I think that it would be great if there was more than just one option, because the option for building our island home elsewhere has only been in one place that has been rejected several times by the community, by the taxpayers, and by the voters. So
They have not rejected Sherburne Commons over and over again. No, they have not.
yeah, twice.
No formal plan has been ever presented to put it there, because the method, the thing on the mainland is having all three levels of care in one place. So if a husband is not necessarily needing a nursing home, but the wife needs the nursing home, then he can walk 10 feet and go visit and have lunch with her. That is the program all over the country on the mainland. I was on the board of Sherburne Commons and visited a whole bunch of these places.
Yeah, that's a for-profit situation.
Over there and him over here, and not be able to have the freedom to do that. So that's why Sherburne Commons was suggested, and there is room at Sherburne Commons to do it. It has to be a separate facility under code. But there is room at Sherburne Commons.
Of another location, because, and Allison, there's no question, I ran a not-for-profit that had multiple ones of these that was a continuum of care. And that's the limitation of a place like our island home, is
Right.
You could have a nursing home there, but you would have a real hard time to provide a continuum of care that might meet some of the, issues of housing, but not necessarily the same level of care. So again, I'm not saying that's.
I think that being a municipal facility is different than being a for-profit facility.
Yeah, that's a for-profit, isn't it? Sherburne's a for-profit.
But we own the land. The town owns the land at Sherburne Commons. And
Sherburne Commons is a nonprofit retirement community.
Itself is, but the land was always proposed when I was on the board that we have all three levels of care out there, and we left some space for it. Maybe not be enough space now, but we left some space to put the nursing home there off into the future. It was a big topic of discussion for the 3 years that before we started to build it.
I was around then too. Yeah. I think that the model failed. The model where, I mean, no one could afford to be in their dementia care unit in their highest level of care at Sherburne Commons.
No, they couldn't, because what they charged. That's right.
Right. And so
But
we're a
there is
municipal
room to put a
facility.
sound facility right next to it and have all three levels of care in one place.
What I'd like to hear is from anyone who has not yet.
I just want to ask one question. Is Sherburne Commons not for profit, or
It's a
say that again,
501c3.
Vanessa?
Sherburne Commons is a 501c3.
Yes,
Okay.
always
Okay.
has been.
And that dementia unit that you were talking about that couldn't be afforded by some or others, that was 3 companies ago.
Right.
And they
That
got
has
rid
yet
of
to come back to have a discussion of anything.
They got rid of it and they put doctor's offices and other things in there. They got rid of it because we fought to have it and then we got rid of it.
So the point is, let's start to look for either pieces of land or something from the town, even maybe right next door to Sherburne Commons. They own all that property along there. And see if there's not a way, and get a committee or something together to
You
talk
already did
about.
that, though.
They have a million committees on this already. You're
I
right.
know, but I'm just asking, has anyone asked about the property next door to Sherburne Commons?
Susie, there was a
I-
whole plan drawn there for
Yeah.
it.
And then
And-
they got voted down.
Well,
That-
okay.
I'll mention
Taxpayers objected to.
first
In,
group I
in
worked with.
discussion to build a new facility at the current location, when
Uh-huh.
it comes to costs, I know
Yeah.
that the town of Nantucket has been in the red a lot because of our island home.
Yep.
So are we building something that can actually sustain by itself before dipping back into the taxpayers?
Well, that's the question. We'd obviously have to take a bond, some sort of a municipal, some sort of a bond of some kind in order to fund it, which would be a long-term bond, probably no less than 20 years to build it. And then how do you sustain it? And sustaining it is always going to be the problem so long as a municipality owns the nursing home, which is why every other place in the state has gone out of the business. That's going to
Okay,
be a
let's
problem.
let's just spend a couple moments just to get it down on paper, build a new facility on a new location. And for folks who
That's a great
haven't, let's think about the strengths first. The strengths, what I've heard already, so I'm going to try to get down what I've heard already, is that it provides a great deal more flexibility of what might be offered, provides a continued potential for a continuum of care, provides, reduces the limitations of just the space. So those are some of the,
And so the continuum of care would only be if the location was at Sherburne Commons.
no,
So
it
that's
doesn't.
assuming
This
that-
says, it's not saying Sherburne Commons. This is saying just a new location.
Okay, well, if you were to build a the whole continuum of care would be an assisted living facility. I mean, I don't think the town's going to sign up to do independent, assisted and skilled nursing, which is the continuum of care, right?
Right, but then we could manage the, this level of care at Sherburne Commons. It has
And
to
so-
be legally a separate structure under
And so
code.
that's why if we should be saying build a new facility at Sherburne Commons, because no other location would have the continuum of care. Because
That's not necessarily the case. The continuum of care could simply be affordable housing for older adults that are next door, so it's not assisted living. Most, and providing community services. There's a lot of places that
Right.
provide community services in independent housing that
Yes.
provide just assisted living as any
I will
assisted
point
living.
out that the Landmark House is right next to our island home. And there have been couples that have used that, situation. So I don't see a continuum of care. I don't see the town supporting building a continuum of care situation when when they can't even afford to house the working staff. I mean, that's kicking it up to another level. So the continuum of care is as a strength only works if it's at Sherburne Commons. So I want to point that out.
I don't think
Others would-
anybody suggested anything else other than
Well,
if
then
we're
let's
going to
put-
do it, is that there at Sherburne Commons.
That's
Well, others have definitely
that's
other
my point.
locations. Others
that's
have
my
definitely
point, is that there's got to be another place. Having one option as a location is not giving the seniors the benefit of the doubt or the opportunity to choose. There's one option. I mean,
The
every other
would be
option.
behind the airport. Where who wants to put them behind the airport?
It's much easier to get to than, driving down Myacomet Ave.
Who's driving down my Common Ave?
So
If you're going to
I
Sherburne,
would
you
say,
are.
No, that's South
The
Shore
idea of-
Road, and it's right, you go straight off of Fairgrounds. We are nowhere near my Common Ave.
The location of what was
The idea
drawn
of this-
is from my Common Ave.
If you wanted to access through Sylvia's property or the breakaway fence. That's not the
Vanessa?
primary, not the primary access at the moment.
I think Sherburne Common has asked that, or mandated that access be not through their complex.
Yes, at the moment.
So that would be on my Common Ave. And it's 1.5 miles from Surfside Road, and that's a ways.
Aren't we getting off topic
God's
here
sakes.
in a way?
Okay, you know what, I'm gonna zip it and
it's
let
much,
other people
yeah,
have an opportunity to talk. So,
this was not to make a decision. Thank you, Judith. But to just have a conversation. And I think you're clearly sharing as a group that you can hear the two. So for anyone who hasn't shared yet about any of the conversation, we want to make sure to give people the opportunity. So is there anyone who has not yet talked or haven't had an opportunity to talk a lot, share either a value, an assumption, a fact, or some strength or weakness that they'd like to offer?
So in building a new facility at a new location, another strength would be a brand spanking new state-of-the-art facility.
And again, even the argument that you could build a new place at where the present location, it's because there's a specific constraint in the present location. State of the art might not be able to be done at the present location.
A weakness, like Allison said, could be distance.
Yep.
Could also just be the impact of, and I don't really like, but school traffic. I don't want to call it school traffic, but like traffic itself, but it's congested right in that area.
I mean, and again, we're talking about build a new facility at Sherburne Commons, because these are all talking about the distance, the traffic. I mean, what if it was built on the Hayes property, which is right by the Rotary
Bank.
and by our island home?
Land
So
bank,
I'm-
we can't do that on land bank property.
Well, we should have
Yeah,
bought it
these-
before the land bank bought it, but
Yeah, well, it's too
Listen.
late now.
Yeah,
But I don't go
in-
down Surfside Road to stop with that. I don't go down Surfside Road to get to my house. I go down Fairgrounds Road. I'd be crazy to go by the school.
I know, but what I'm pointing out is that we aren't talking about building a new facility at a different location than Sherburne Commons. And I think that we should just put Sherburne Commons next to build a new facility. And we should have a whole third column of build a new facility at a new location.
Yes, I agree. Another location, people should start talking about another location.
Now I'm done.
Well, there's no question the focus is a new location, and there's some of these that might be consistent with Sherburne Commons. You're always going to have it be more distant than the place it is today. So I think distance would probably fit
But
in
then
some degree.
another thing about building a new facility, this can be a strength and a weakness, is to make sure you have the adequate and enough staff. The fact that you have, people who actually live at our island home. You don't want to build an our island home and half of it just be empty.
Yeah. Well, I want to be, again, cognizant of time, and I was told that this meeting is usually an hour. So I want to make sure that we don't go too far over our time. And I can promise you, Michelle and I have a very good sense of the thoughts of a number of the folks in the group. And we will add, I know Michelle was trying to take notes. We together will look at these, and I'll make sure we add the notes, the comments, some of the other comments that were made relative to a new location versus Sherburne Commons. When we put that down, building a new facility at new location or at Sherburne Commons, make that different, and we'll separate that after. But I
Maybe
do
other than
appreciate,
Sherburne Commons would be the right way to, because I think
that's a
that
good way to,
that could get a lot of energy.
that's a good way to put it. So the important thing is this is not, know that you are not, this is not the only group that we're talking to, actually hundreds of different people in different stakeholder groups. So we've met with 6 stakeholder groups already. We have 4 other stakeholder groups that we're going to be meeting, 5 other stakeholder groups we're going to be meeting with. So
Who are
there'll
they,
be
by the way?
12. Earlier on, they were like Our Island Home staff, Our Island Home residents, friends of Our Island Home. It was the working group within the town. We're talking to people like the Civic League, the Rotary, the
What about NCEA?
yes, we're talking to them.
Okay.
The senior, what's the other group, Michelle, we're talking to?
Sorry, the
CHE.
taxpayers group we'll be talking with as well.
So most of the original stakeholder groups had direct connection to Our Island Home. Now the decision was made by the town to go beyond just the Our Island Home group. I mean, sort of focus groups to people beyond Our Island.
How many years have we been talking about this? That's my question.
A long
Since
time.
2008.
So
I think
the
even
point
before.
is that we're rehashing everything over and over and over again. So it would seem that now is the time to sort of look for property, find other options, and just move ahead and not have a zillion meetings talking about what are your thoughts, because we all know what we want. We want a new facility or to fix the one we have, move to Sherburne Commons or buy a piece of land. I mean, those are the options.
And I can promise you that my discussion with the select board, they want to move forward, but they're trying to be intentional about making sure they weigh the strengths and weaknesses of the different options. As has been said, there's a plan for the present location. There's a lot of, the reason why they didn't go forward, not only because of the cost, which is very high, but also because of the limitations of what you actually get from that. I think if it was—
Exactly. You can't enlarge it. It would be really great if you could have, salt marsh combined with, the home, Our Island Home and create.
I must say that the plans are available online, and they included potential housing for staff. So a plan has been drawn that includes all of the things that we're talking about, but it was a lot of money, and we never tweaked it. We never took out this and added this or made any changes to it. So,
but how large can that property be?
45 bed on 2 levels. And the plans are available online, so you can see actually what has been done.
That's what we've been licensed for, but I do agree. I think we all are frustrated by the fact that this the can hasn't been kicked down the street in 12 years. And I think, going over this type of a charrette thing again and again and again with different groups who've already weighed in is not getting it any further down the road than where we were 12 years ago. A little bit more defined, perhaps, as what we can and can't do. But we've got to do something.
Michelle and I will take that back. I will say you all being on Council on Aging, I'm sure, are more intimately involved in this than many others, because the other stakeholder groups really, I think, we're not at the same place as you all, and some might be more or less involved in the intricacies. So I think you all are feeling this more tangibly than the other folks. So partly, perhaps some of it is to get people up to where you all are at. So there's this general greater sense of urgency to make a decision.
But why is it that you're just now saying this? I think everybody knows there's a sense of urgency. And I feel like, in a way, once again, repeating myself, this is a waste of time because we know what we want, we know what we need to do, and let's find a way to resolve this instead of making lists and trying to create this and what do you think, because we all know what we want. But I have to run, unfortunately, so
Let's end this. I
thank you
appreciate
for your time.
Hey, could I ask a
appreciate.
question?
I have to go.
Could I ask a question to Linda?
Yeah, I'm here.
Is there ever been an exchange of land, Nantucket-owned land with the land bank?
The land bank property would have to go through an act of the state legislature because according to their act, it cannot be used for housing and all that kind of stuff. We had to get special legislation for the fields because that's recreational, active recreational. So the land bank's hard to part with anything. Generally speaking, they don't buy land where you can really have a facility on. The Hayes property is the closest one to anything down there on the creeks, but that's already gone to the land bank and they have legislative restrictions. So it would require an act of the state legislature. There is, I'll give you an example of how limited it is. The Housing Trust, when I was on that for 8 years, the Housing Trust worked out an agreement with the land bank that if they found land that was conducive to affordable housing, we would buy that piece and they would buy the rest. They couldn't even buy it and then give it to the Housing Trust for housing. That's how limited their scope of their ability is. So we could have a discussion, but not really going to go anywhere right now.
Actually, had we started this process a while ago, we could have there are a couple of swaps that were available. Looking back 2 years, had we made a move to, engage with the land bank on a swap, we have it now, but we didn't.
Prior to their acquisition, they could not have bought it and given it to us. We would have had to be partners in buying it.
There's no question there's been lost opportunities, as Allison has mentioned, that unfortunately you can't go back. You can only go forward. So, but
lost the time.
I think there were lost opportunities. All right. Well, thank you all very much, and stay tuned as we move forward in this process, and hopefully we will move forward quickly. We're trying to do this as quickly as possible so that the select board can, we can present this all to them and they can hopefully act as you all would like them to act.
Well, you can tell there's a lot of strong opinions, and some people like Marianne and some other people have been in, Allison, have been involved with this situation. I was involved with building Sherburne Commons, but a lot of us have been involved with this situation for a long time, and the frustration is obviously evident.
We will share that. We will share that, and I think they understand. But thank you for being passionate about something that is so important, because whatever happens, as you all say, something happening is fundamentally important, because
well, some of us are closer to ending up there than others.
Thank you,
well,
Herb.
Thank you. Take care, Mary.
Thank you,
Take
Herb.
care,
And
everybody.
thank you, Michelle.
All right, thanks.
Marianne, thank you
Thank
all.
you, everybody else, for participating. So actually,
Sorry,
I'd like to
sorry,
ask you-
Madam Chair. Is it possible to get a list of the notes that were given, that were taken?
Michelle, that would be something for you to answer.
You can make that available. Yeah.
Share that, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could somebody make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second?
Oh, me,
Anybody
please. Me, please.
Yeah, jump up there.
Me, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So,
have to take-
I have to go through the roll to get an approval of this. So Allison,
Yes.
Diane,
Oh, hold on. Yes.
Vanessa,
Yes.
Jude,
Gone already.
probably gone. Susie's gone. Linda,
Yes.
and yes for me. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Right.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
See you next month.
I am now going to be ceasing recording.
And Jericho, thank you for being
Okay.
our son, as well as
Absolutely my pleasure.
our boss.
Oof. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good day, everyone.